Hello and welcome to Round 9 of Grand Prix Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm Nate Price in the booth with Jacob Van Lunen. We're here in the final round of play looking at Terry Stoute playing his Mono Blue Devotion deck against Christion Calcano playing his Esper Control deck.
Yeah, now this matchup definitely favors Christion here. He's got to be happy to be playing against this Mono Blue deck in his elimination round here. But the Mono Blue deck is a dangerous beast, and it can come out of nowhere and just kill people. So let's see if yeah, this is a fast start here. So 3 points of flying power on the table already for Terry. Christion was on the play though, so if he's able to get a supreme verdict, then he'll be in pretty good shape here. And even if he has a detention sphere here for turn 3, it's going to be pretty awesome for him.
Do know that, Terry's got 2 more Frostburn Weirds hiding in his hand, so here's that detention sphere you're talking about. That's going to completely neuter the early part of this offense from Terry. Gets both of the Cloudfin Raptors. That's what you always want to see when you cast detention sphere. If you can get 2 for 1 on that bad boy, especially on a card that like the Raptors, which are going to reset effectively and become virtually useless when they come back into play, at least for the initial parts of the turn. Quite a good draw.
Even if Terry does have something like a Cyclonic Rift, those Raptors aren't really going to be relevant by the time he's able to do that.
Yeah. Although his hand is still incredibly impressive. Look at that. Another copy of Frostburn Word and 2 copies of Master of Waves. Both.
Yeah, pretty good. Then again, against Esper, it's not exactly what you're looking for,
Looking for the diffuse threats and Bidens, basically.
Yeah, you're looking for Jace, and you're... you want to curve out, but things are just hard in general against Esper. I think even your best cards are not so great. Like Thassa becomes your absolute best card.
Yeah. What makes it so bad? The matchup, what makes it so bad? Why is Esper so good against Mono Blue Control?
Well, you have Supreme Verdict backed up by a lot of spot removal and card draw. So the Esper deck, it has a lot of time to survive because it can ignore the creatures that aren't dealing it a ton of damage. And Supreme Verdict just does an unbelievable amount of work against the Mono Blue deck because they really have no way to defend against it, and it almost always represents better than a 2 for 1.
Yeah.
So.
And speaking of spot removal, a Hero's Downfall from Calcano takes out the biggest threat on Terry's side of the board, that Frostburn Weird, leaving him with just a single 1/1 flyer that's going to be bashing over. I think there's some conversation about what light total should be. I believe there is. Okay, yeah. So things are correct with Calcano sitting at 17. Staved off that early fight pretty well. And Calcano pays 2 for that Hallowed Fountain. 5 mana spells Blood Baron of Vizkopa.
And that's a pretty good one. 4 power lifelinker. It's going to be something pretty special here.
Ooh, that's a perfect answer for it there out of Stoute's hand. That Rapid Hybridization is going to be able to kill it, and it's going to leave a 3/3 Frog Lizard in its wake, but 3/3 Frog Lizard is not a 4/4 lifelinker, so...
It is certainly not.
It's a downgrade you're more than willing to make. And without further delay, doesn't want to give Calcano an opportunity to untap and potentially have any counter magic to prevent that. Kind enough to bring his own Frog Lizard as well. What a sweetheart.
Ooh, Tidebinder Mage.
To
pretty
keep
good
it
there.
Tapped. What a nice little turn of play.
Yeah.
I'll give you this green creature. Please keep him. And I'm going to keep him tapped down with the creature that I play after combat. Or not after combat, after resolving the hybridization.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. So we see him draw a Night Veil Spectre there. Night Veil Spectre is incredibly powerful in this matchup if it can actually survive long enough to get through.
Yeah, and it's probably the best non-land draw he could have had there.
Yeah. It's pretty solid against the removal suite you see in Esper too, because it doesn't get killed by Ultimate Price, it doesn't get killed by Doomblade. It's really like here. It's protected because there's other creatures against Devour Flesh. It's just Hero's Downfall and Detention Sphere, and then the obvious Supreme Verdict that really can stop it once it gets into play.
And this Azorius Charm is great because Terry's been missing land drops, and he's going to be guaranteed to miss at least another land drop thanks to this Azorius Charm. And it's also going to allow Christion to untap that Frog Lizard and bash in for 3 damage. And then he's going to get an opportunity to untap all of his lands, and it just seems great for him. I believe he does have a Revelation in hand.
So we talked earlier about how Azorius Charm is still a very good card. It's a little weaker than it was in Standard before Theros, just because of how the creatures in this format have kind of worked their way out. But we've seen it do a lot of work today in stymieing opponents' ability to develop their board, because they'll be shy on lands, and a single Azorius Charm can completely wreck a person's ability to get into a game, especially when they're just a little behind. And we see a Last Breath from Calcano take care of that Night Veil Spectre, so not even something to worry about. And then you're right that Sphinx's Revelation for 3 is going to not only pad his life total, but fill his hand back up.
And things are looking pretty good for Calcano after he resolves that Revelation there. Did he find another land? He did.
In fact. And, guess who's there? So, Stoute's able to attack for 1. So he bounced the Judge's Familiar, didn't bounce the
yeah, and that was so that he could get a bigger Revelation.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yep.
Once we realize that he has the Revelation.
Yep. Yeah. He opts not to replay it, instead choosing to leave his 1 mana open.
All right, so another 6 mana here from Christion, and that's Elspeth,
That
Sun's champion.
is a problem.
That is definitely a problem for Terry here.
Elspeth is one of those cards. I mean, it's a very difficult card for a lot of decks to deal with, but it seems especially difficult for the Mono Blue Devotion decks to deal with. Like, very few of their threats actually fly, and the ones that do aren't generally the ones that are going to be dealing the bulk of the damage.
Yeah, Thassa's really good at crashing through. Master of Waves can sometimes overwhelm it, but especially out of a deck like Esper, where it's backed up by so much spot removal, it's just really hard to deal with Elspeth.
Terry has no choice but to at least try his hand, and we're going to see him ultimately lose that Tiebinder Mage, thus losing control of his Frog Lizard.
And now he's facing down some serious problems.
Yeah.
Christian's going to untap that 3/3. He's going to get 3 more 1/1s.
Yeah. A Night Veil Spectre does hit play, but Calcano still has a number of cards in his hand. Carefully guarded cards, I might say.
Looks like he does have a lot of land.
Yep. All right, and so Elspeth is going to make another army. It's so insane that that ability increases her loyalty.
Yeah.
Like,
you make 3 guys,
but if
and
you're
you
gonna
go upstairs.
If you're paying 6 for a card, you should get some pretty splashy effects. So, all right, and Blood Baron.
Oh, those are really splashy effects.
Splashy was definitely in air quotes.
If you're looking for splashy effects, you should check out Master of Waves.
Sea ponies.
Splash.
So he has a Thassa in his hand now, but Thassa is, while she would be a creature, would have been a creature. This is not a good spot for Terry to be in. He still hasn't found his 4th land. He's got the Thassa, but he's also going to want to, very likely going to want to draw that Night Veil Spectre again in order to make sure that he can get Thassa into the full devotion. So this is going to be a rough spot. I mean, it's never fun staring down against a control deck when they've got 7-8 lands in play and you're like struggling to drop their life total into single digits. Even more disappointing when your opponent has an Elspeth that is already up to 6 counters and is still making guys. So Calcano has hit that point where he flips the switch. Creatures start to attack now.
Yeah, and everything comes in. The Frostburn Weird likely just going to jump in front of one of these tokens. So he's going to take 9 here, dropping him down to 8. Christian's going to gain 4, go back up to...
Do you mind if I borrow your die? My die does not have enough pips on it to represent Elspeth's loyalty. Oh, you don't mind? Thank you. Detention sphere. All right, so now we're looking at 3 islands and a Frostburn Weird versus the entire Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast
There's
Guard.
a lot of cards on that one side of the table, aren't there?
Seems like a reasonable decision. Stoute unfortunately finds himself on the receiving end of. I mean, it was a good draw from Calcano. He didn't even need this Supreme Verdict. That lack of a 4th land really hurt Stoute. I mean, his hand was pretty good in that early detention sphere. Managing to get both of those Cloudfin Raptors was just absolutely crucial.
He took a lot of wind out of Terry's sails with that play.
Yeah.
Christian Calcano is a pretty exciting player to watch. He's still an up-and-comer. He's from the New York City area. I think he's actually from Brooklyn.
I believe that's correct, yeah.
And he started traveling over the last couple of years, and he has really just grinded his way into the top 25 players in the world. And there is no other word to describe what he has done. He has really just pushed it to the limit in going to as many events as he possibly can go to. He's been playing well, and he's been doing well at these events. And this year, he's on a little bit of a tear.
Yeah.
So,
and he's, I mean,
I'm really rooting for him to get platinum this year. That would be an excellent thing for him.
Yeah, he's currently the 24th ranked player in our top 25 rankings. The kid's put in some work, and I remember middle of last year, actually, I was having a conversation with Rich Hagen. Calcano had been attending a lot of events and performing well, but just would always fall short at the end, and he was starting to get incredibly disheartened with that, as can happen. I mean, if you show up to all of these tournaments, I mean, think of the kids who, like, you go to PTQs every week and you finish, like, X and, finish in 9th place, finish in 10th place every single week, and, like, you'd always start to wonder when you're going to break through, and he was starting to feel that way, and Rich had been looking into a lot of sports psychology stuff and had sat Calcano down and talked to him before Grand Prix Minneapolis and was just like, look, man, this is how I would approach things. This is how you have to kind of adjust your mindset. And Calcano went in with an incredibly positive mindset and just demolished that tournament. And I was actually doing coverage with Rich at another event that exact same weekend. And I think, was that Grand Prix Hiroshima? Was that the same weekend? Might have been. But 2 of us were sitting there, and he was just constantly following. Calcano loves Twitter, loves Facebook, big on social media, and so it's really easy to follow his progression. And so we were following it on that and following it on the mothership, and it was a lot of fun, like, watching the progression. Rich was just beaming and so happy. And, like, you could tell that Calcano was happier every win that he got, and ended up taking down the title. And it was just impressive, like, great victory for him. And just from that point on, it's been nonstop flow at events. It's been a lot of fun to see him play and a lot of fun to see him grow and progress.
Another, for those of you just joining us, so Christian Calcano is 6-2, 6 wins, 2 losses, but the only 2 losses that he's incurred so far today were incurred due to travel delays.
Yes.
He didn't get here until round 5 was ending. So round 6 of this tournament was the first round that Christian got to play, and he hasn't lost a single round yet. He's been playing well. He told me that he's very happy with how he played so far today. And
this is a deck he feels comfortable with. Like, this is the deck that he sleeves up to fight. I think he's been playing this since the Pro Tour, like at every tournament that he's gone to, every standard tournament. So he knows how to play it really well. He was playing Esper for most of last season as well. So it's a deck and a style that he's very comfortable with. And it's actually one that's positioned fairly well, actually. So be nice to see. It'd be a great story to see him continue this streak, and despite fighting back from those 2 unintentional losses.
If he's able to top 8 after getting 2 losses,
man, that's a story.
That would be pretty incredible.
Yep.
It's becoming all the rage now after Sam Black.
Yeah.
Sam Black at the other GP. The only match he lost was to the airline.
Yep. Let's take a quick look at these sideboards. Looking at Calcano's, Gainsay is an easy inclusion.
Definitely.
Last Breath is another easy inclusion in this matchup. Far and Away seems like it's a pretty easy inclusion in the deck as well. What do you think about Swan Song?
I would not bring Swan Song in.
Too many creatures?
Yeah,
not enough
you
enchantments?
really need your cards to interact immediately.
Yeah.
It's a really bad top deck.
That's fair.
And
what about
a card like Last Breath is great top deck against
yeah.
this deck because it actually deals with a Master and all of its minions.
Yep. How about Thoughtseize? He's got 3 copies of Thoughtseize in his sideboard. I've noticed a lot of decks have gone down from the 4 Thoughtseizes most people saw main deck around the Pro Tour to 1, maybe 2 main deck. He actually has 0 main deck and all 3 of them in his sideboard. You think that card comes in this matchup, or is it something you're generally aiming towards other decks in the field?
I would bring it in because I really think that Thassa is the only thing that matters when you're on the play, and it matters a lot more than everything else when you're on the draw. So I would bring it in just because there's such a high disparity of power level between the cards in Terry's deck.
Yeah. Okay. Looking at the other side, Terry's got a Cyclonic Rift, which is likely going to come in, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's good at interacting with the detention spheres.
Yep, he's got another Bident of Thassa, which I would almost certainly imagine comes in this matchup. 2 Dispels, which are clearly going to come in. The Gainsays are obvious as well. He's got 1 copy of Jace Architect of Thought and 2 Jace Memory Adepts.
Jace, I think he's probably going to be siding out his Bidents if he's on this plan.
Since he's got the additional Jaces to bring in. Yeah.
You can take out the Bidents, the Domestication, the Rapid Hybridization, and then he gets to bring in Dispel, Gainsay. He's going to need to find more stuff to take out, actually.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Well, let's see. The 1 Domestication main is not something that he's going to need after sideboarding.
Definitely not. He does not want that card anymore.
If you're siding out the Bidens, your 1-drops get a little weaker, right? So you can probably start to lose some of the Cloudfin Raptors. That a possibility he might take? Do you take that out, or do you take Judge's Familiar out? I mean, Judge's Familiar seems like it's got a pretty strong interaction against many of the cards in Calcano's deck, but it also doesn't really beat for a whole lot. So,
Judge's Familiar is an interesting one. I think it's hard to leave it in your deck as long as you have Bident as long as you're taking Bident out.
Right.
But if you're leaving Bident in, then I would definitely keep it in this type of matchup. So.
All right. Well, players have kept their hands. We see a hand from Terry featuring a couple of Mutavaults, a couple of Planes. Is that...
It's a Memory Adept?
Memory Adept, yeah, that's what I thought too. So, Tidebinder Mage and a Master of Waves. And Calcano is playing Secret Magic, so we'll try to get a look at what he's got for us. Looks like a Jace the Mind Sculptor in his hand. That's hilarious.
I doubt that's what it is.
Very clearly not that, but yeah.
I wish.
Yeah, so does he.
It's a fun card to watch.
It's a lot of fun to have, and it is the most miserable experience in the world playing on the other side of the table from it. All right, Scrylands helping him hunt through for the cards that he needs. Serve a completely different purpose than they do in a lot of the aggressive decks in this, but only at least in the early stages of the game, where those decks are trying to flush away lands. His is trying to accumulate them that we can continue to cast the spells that he needs. But late game, it tends to switch the other direction, where you just go for the cards you want, drop the lands away. So
the Scrylands work really well in the Esper deck because, like you were saying, you really want to hit your first 6 or 7 land drops. That's super important. But it allows you to do that, and then as the game progresses toward the end, like you have all these answers for pretty specific kinds of cards.
Yeah.
So having a way to manipulate your library is just so strong.
So Calcano has been dropped to 16 by a couple of swings from that Tidebinder Mage. Mage also contributed to the devotion for the Master of Waves that Terry just played, conjuring up a trio of sea ponies.
So many sea ponies.
We've seen more. We had how many earlier?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah. 3 is a little easier. 3 is definitely something the count would count to. Like one sea pony. All the way up to 3.
Ooh, and a Dispel there in Terry's hand. That's probably going to get Christion, who is leaning a little hard on this hero's downfall here. I'm pretty surprised that Christion went ahead and didn't choose to use his Spiral Removal spell during his main phase.
Yeah.
He's going to get punished for that a little bit here, and he's getting hit for 14. That's going to put him down to 2. And now he's just dead to these Mutavaults next turn, even if he has a verdict.
What a smack. I think Christian knows that this is incoming. And just picked it up. Didn't even want to move on. So, he knew he wasn't going to be able to do anything until the next turn. So that Dispel, quite a big game. Again, we see Master of Waves just completely swinging things. Like if it tends to be a little weaker against this Esper deck, where a lot of the single target removal spells will make sure that it goes away and takes the sea ponies with it. But if you've got anything to back it up, I mean, he brought 8 power to the table that game, and for a 4 mana investment, that's pretty much what you're looking for. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, that's on the low end for what this deck can do with that card.
yeah. I mean, we saw Terry play 4 spells that last game.
Mm-hmm.
Tidebinder Mage, the Master of Waves, the Dispel that ended up actually winning in the game. Like, that's all that it took.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, Mutavault definitely had a lot to do with it.
Certainly.
If he didn't have those 2 Mutavaults, then he wouldn't have put Christion to 2, and Christion could have just verdicted and won anyway.
and that's why Mutavault was one of the more interesting inclusions in Standard. Like, once it made it to the core set, it's one of the best cards against control in the format right now. And like, it's the fact that there are decks, like Devotion is such a strong strategy, makes it easier for you to play cards like Mutavault in your deck and not have to worry about your mana base, since you're trying to go for that monocolored route. It's been sweet to see the way that this format has included Mutavault, and
It's been one of the very best cards.
yeah, certainly has.
We've seen Mutavault in conjunction with Packrat just dominate tournaments, not even games.
Yeah.
Yeah, Owen in Albuquerque, he just played Mutavaults and cast Packrats, and then activated the Packrats, and that's basically what he did for the whole top 8.
Yeah.
He won the Grand Prix.
Good enough for a victory. No, Mutavault's very powerful. Like, it is resilient to, like, especially in this mono blue Devotion deck where there are dedicated magnets for removal spells. Like, you have to be able to use a removal spell on Master of Waves or he will kill you.
Yeah,
you
almost
have to be
you
able
have to do it immediately.
Yeah. You have to aim a removal spell at Nightveil Spectre as well. Like, when you get the ability to have, like, magnets like that, Nightveil Spectre is the unsung hero that comes in after the fact and just cleans up the mess that those guys leave behind. And if you decide that you're going to, hedge and use your removal spell on that and attempt to, stifle your opponent and get that, you just get punished by those other cards when they hit. So it's a careful game to play, especially when these Esper decks are usually only rocking, like, 5 to 7, like, single target removal spells. You got to pick your spots. Speaking of which, what is Calcano running for his removal suite? Looks like 4 Detention Spheres, 4 Azorius Charms, the black. He's running. So this is an interesting one. So Last Breath is one of the cards we're seeing more and more of this weekend. Like, that is occupying the spot that was previously like Doomblade's spot.
Yeah, it is taking the place of Doomblade or Ultimate Price here in Calcano's deck. No Devour Flesh. His 2-mana spell removal spell is Last Breath, and he's playing the black. It's not like he's a blue-white deck, and he's using that as a Doomblade Light or something. It's actually his removal spell of choice here this weekend.
It's a removal spell for a lot of people of choice. I mean, considering the fact that it hits almost everything that matters at 2 mana, and the big one is it kills the Nightveil Spectre dead. Like, you don't have to fuss around with Ultimate Price or with Doomblade not being able to target it. It just goes away. And that's why we've seen a lot of decks starting to pack that. It's actually a reason I'm pretty sure that a lot of decks have started to veer away from Esper, and we've seen such a rise in blue-white decks, is because the black removal suite isn't as strong at this point in the season as they were previously. The one thing you do lose that Thoughtseize and the ability to kill Planeswalkers from the Hero's Downfall. Those are 2 big key losses, but the rest of the removal suite is just lost power as the format's gone on, now that mono black is so strong.
It's definitely true. And let's see if Christion has the Supreme Verdict here.
Oh, and we do. That's such a timely wipe. Managed to get 5 Devotion of Creatures, including a Nightveil Spectre, off the table, which would have been absolutely devastating. Except for Terry doesn't have a 4th land, but he does have quite a number of powerful cards.
His hand seems really good, but he's in a position where he really wants to hit lands.
Oh,
runner.
Lo and behold, speak of the devil. Last Breath takes care of the newly cast Night Veil Spectre, exactly as it was intended to do. So it looks like the Judge's Familiars are still in the deck. Haven't seen a Cloudfin Raptor yet, though, but then again, sample size is a little small. So Tidebinder Mage and a Judge's Familiar represent 3 power and 3 devotion.
Yeah, despite missing these land drops, I mean, Terry has used all of his mana every single turn so far.
All right, Calcano's quote-unquote stalled out on 5 lands. So we did talk earlier about how getting to 6 is kind of the magic number for these Esper decks. So
Yeah, 6 or 7.
Yep. And the 4th land from Terry's gives him the capability of playing that he's got to make a decision here. It looks like he's got a Jace, Architect of Thought, and a Master of Waves in his hand. So which direction do you want to go?
Now, your opponent has already used Supreme Verdict. Do you think he has another one? If you don't,
All right, so he's going to go with the... I don't even know if I want to call this the safe route of playing Jace. 'Cause, I mean, especially playing against an opponent who has counter spells, although it doesn't look like he's got them. So, all right, it looks like he's kept in the Bident as well. So we see Gainsay, Bident to Thassa, which is actually really good in this spot, and an island, which Calcano knows that he missed a land drop on the previous turn as well. So the island is fresh, makes his decision a little difficult. So what do you make your piles here? You go Gainsay, Island, and Bident?
I think I do Gainsay, Biden, and an island.
Okay.
Generally speaking, with Factor Fiction type effects, when your opponent has missed land drops at some point in the last 2 turns, if they're playing, a deck that has spells that cost more than the number of lands they have in play, then just splitting spells and lands is generally the correct thing to do.
Okay. Well, Calcano at least has the Bident and the Island in opposite piles right now. It looked initially like he was going with your line. Let's see if he ultimately agrees with it.
Okay. He chooses to deviate a little bit from
Yep.
the conventional wisdom on the subject matter, but
Yeah.
that's fine. I mean, he's a strong player, and I'm sure he has a reason for doing so. I'm not really sure what's in his hand.
Yeah. We're never sure. He's so sneaky.
Did he already play land that turn?
He
He did.
did, yes. Already played a land this turn.
Yep.
Let's see if we can't get that corrected really fast.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can.
Yeah. So. Ooh, and an Aetherling.
That is a big game, especially
That is a
against
very
this
big
blue
game.
deck that doesn't have anything to punish Calcano for tapping out for it.
It's going to be pretty rough to deal with that.
And it looks like they're resolving that extra land drop right now.
Yeah, because the turn before this, he was unable to cast any of his 4-drops.
Yeah.
And then this turn, he cast the Jace and found the island.
Yep.
And then yeah, he definitely played an extra land.
Yes.
So yeah, not a big deal.
No. Fairly
mean,
easy to resolve. Nothing has happened that would have changed anything from
Yeah,
this
he
point,
didn't
so.
use the land. I mean, it's
I mean, he did show Dispel in the previous game.
Christion
so
does
could have
know about a
altered his
spell, and
line,
that could have
but-
altered what Christion did. Like on Christian's turn, maybe he wanted to, main phase Revelation, and he was unable to do so because
Yeah.
he was playing around Dispel, and instead he main phased an Aetherling,
Yeah.
So
It looks like we're going to get this resolved. Looks like
it's
we're...
good that they're laughing.
Yeah.
Having a good time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obviously a mistake. We've seen Terry's hand. We know that it does not affect his line at all.
Exactly.
He's in a high pressure situation. He's playing for day 2, playing against one of the top 25 Magic players in the world.
Yep. And we've seen players make this kind of mistake all the time. So, like, even
Yeah.
in feature matches, even at Pro Tours. So, These things just happen, especially like given the harrowing circumstances of the weekend for a lot of players. Like, I'm sure that Calcano might be a little tired himself. He might have caught that when it happened, but easy solution to these problems. All right.
And it does in some ways affect the game because if
certainly.
Terry draws another land, then he can cast a 4-drop and have Gainsay up.
Oh,
things
yeah.
like that. So
It certainly impacts things. It's something that definitely needs to be resolved.
yeah,
So.
I mean, hypothetically, they can rewind the game. I mean, all that happened was Calcano drew a card and cast an Aetherling since the land was played.
Yeah.
So he can untap his lands and put the Aetherling back in his hand and get his turn back with no land in play.
Which would very likely involve him playing a land and then casting Aetherling. But
Yeah.
then again, he always has the option. He does have 2 other cards in his hand. I think that might be what they're talking about right now, like what's happened in the sense that happened and running through that. But that's all right. Curious as to the conversation that's going on right now. But anyway, Aetherling is just insane, right? Like, it's good in every matchup. There isn't usually a situation where you don't want to draw it, right? I mean, like, at least in the later stages of the game.
Well, in the later stages of the game, it's pretty insane when you draw it. But you know, when you draw it on 6 against decks that have removal, you can't even play it. So you really need to wait till the game goes really deep before you can cast your Aetherling. And it's a dangerous card to have in your deck because of that. Because it doesn't do anything but win the game.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and like one of the biggest problems with building control decks in general is the fact that you have to include cards that win you the game.
Yes.
You know, it's unfortunate.
I didn't hear that last part. I'm sorry. It sounds like the ruling at the table was there's a warning, no rewind. So Calcano is appealing that ruling. So
I think that is
correct
something
decision.
that I would appeal also.
Yeah.
You can't just play extra lands and then get a warning for it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, play all these lands. Primeval Titan.
Oops.
Oh, it was a mistake. I already searched for the lands, though. Warning? Yeah, I thought so. All right, let's go.
It's a little sad you guys didn't get video footage of
I'm not saying you did this on
the
purpose.
Jake
I don't
appeals.
think you did.
Oh, no,
you know,
no, I don't either. But so do you think, considering Terry showed him rapid hybridization in the last game, that tapping out on turn 6 against this blue deck to play Aetherling might have been a mistake? Or
I do
at least
not
something
think
to
it would be a
consider?
mistake. There's no way that Terry keeps rapid hybridization in against Christian's deck.
Thinking the same thing.
You know,
but
so
figured I'd ask
and,
nonetheless.
yeah, no, but it's a good question though, and it's something that a lot of people might play around, and it would be a mistake to play around because
Yeah.
one of the things that makes Magic such an interesting game and it makes the game so compelling is that the things you have to play around and the situations you're finding yourself in, those change constantly based on who's on the play, who's on the draw, what game is it in the match. You know, the fact that this is game 3, they know what the other person is playing, and now because Christian's opponent knows that Christian is playing Esper, there's no way that he'll still have rapid hybridization in his deck, and therefore it becomes correct to not play around rapid hybridization. So not playing around something is difficult to do sometimes.
The levels of thought, like, 'cause, I mean, you've got to put yourself, what level is this going to happen? Like, my opponent shouldn't do this. Since my opponent isn't going to do this, I'm going to assume that he's not, and I'm going to play accordingly to that plan.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing against a player who you think might not know how to sideboard in a particular matchup, or they might seem inexperienced in playing against your deck, then you might not play that way.
Yeah.
But if you're deep in a Grand Prix and you're playing against somebody who has played optimal lines with their deck, and sideboarded quickly against you, and like sideboarded some number of cards or knew what they had a plan before the match, then you can be pretty confident rapid hybridization is not part of that plan.
Yeah. Magic. All right.
Yeah. So
Have you ever had to make a head judge appeal playing in the Pro Tour yourself?
I have. I've had to make a few.
What happened?
I got a match loss at a Grand Prix once.
You
where,
cheater.
No, I wasn't cheating. I think I was like 7-0 at Grand Prix in Atlanta. It was an extended Grand Prix.
Okay.
A couple years back. I think it was the year before Modern took over extended.
Okay.
And I was playing like a Scape Shift deck.
Yep.
And I ran out of room to write on my piece of paper, my life pad. So I reached into my pocket and pulled out a piece of paper and started writing on it. But the piece of paper that I was writing on, and I left it on the table for at least 15 seconds, was my sideboard cheat sheet.
Oh, yeah.
Which you're allowed to look at in between games, but you're not
during.
allowed to look at it during games.
Yeah.
So that was outside information, and it was a match loss. And I appealed it because I wasn't seeking outside information, and it wasn't anything that had to do with my opponent's deck or,
Right.
If anything, it helped my opponent, letting him see what I had in my sideboard. But
Yeah.
but helping your opponent isn't any better than helping yourself. I mean, it hurts the integrity of the game.
Yeah.
And that's what the judges are there to prevent. So I ended up getting a match loss, which I was upset about at the time, but in hindsight, I understand.
Yeah.
I had another appeal where I felt that my opponent had manipulated his deck
Okay.
at a Pro Tour. And
The cheater. See, there we go. Now I got to use it for real.
Yeah, that person. I'm okay using that word to describe that person, who I will not talk about. But Sheldon Menery actually ended up being the one who I appealed to, and my opponent ended up getting disqualified. So
Sheriff laid down the law.
yeah, but it was after a long discussion, and they ended up they didn't disqualify him right then and there,
Right.
but they ended up watching him, and he was manipulating his deck, and it was before the days where you weren't allowed to randomize your deck after your opponent presented it back to you.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So he was cutting his library when people presented it to him, but he was sifting his thumb through it as he cut it, and he was cutting to specific cards.
Oh. How did you
So-
catch that?
What?
How did you catch that?
He put his head on the table and sifted through the deck with his thumb.
Oh, so
before
he's
he cut
not
the
very
deck.
good at
It wasn't
that.
like it
David
wasn't-
Copperfield,
yeah,
like
it wasn't
David
like
Blaine
he was
stuff.
just like
Yeah.
pulling some magician trick. It was still pretty impressive, the speed at which he did it. But
Yeah.
I mean, but he was obviously looking at his deck, so I was a little bit.
I can definitely
Frustrated.
imagine that in those situations, I would probably give them a dumbfounded, "Are you kidding me?" stare if they were doing something that in front of me. Like,
Well, it blew my
that
mind. So the
blatant-
first judge was just like, "Oh, I mean, there's no way to prove that he did that," and like just basically was just gonna let it go. So
call.
I appealed, and
Yeah.
Sheldon ended up just checking out what's going on. He resolved our situation that was happening at the time, and then
Just re-randomize the deck, or
well, yeah, but he peaked too, because I was saying during the conversation with Sheldon, I was like, if you look at the top card of his deck, there's only one of this left in his deck, and I guarantee you that's what's on the top of his deck. And Sheldon looked, and
that's what it was.
yeah, that was the top of his deck. And then they followed him around, and he ended up getting banned, I think, at like 2 Grand Prix later. So
Lesson learned, kids.
Yeah.
Cheaters.
don't cheat. Cheating is not good.
Cheating is bad.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
don't write down your life total on your sideboard cheat sheet.
Also,
Another good lesson. That's
No matter-
that's actually the only match loss I've gotten, I think, in like the last decade.
man,
Back when I was a little kid, I definitely got match losses for like clerical errors and stuff. But
little kid stuff, basically.
yeah,
I mean, I guess that was technically a clerical error too. But
yeah, I guess it was.
no matter how much you think you may be helping your opponent, don't.
So, yeah, I've never gotten in trouble for anything like egregious, which
Yeah.
is good.
No, that's definitely good.
I've never done anything egregious either, so it's hard to get in trouble for it then.
Yeah. I come from the Midwest, and like back when I started playing competitive Magic, like we referred to that as the Old West days, because like the Ohio Valley in particular, and like a lot of the kids from Wisconsin, not a lot of the kids, but like the kids from Wisconsin and like a lot of us in the Ohio Valley, like we knew what to look for, because there were a couple of people who were just notorious in our area, and so it was definitely an interesting trial by fire, learning all the tricks of like the early 2000s like Magic cheaters. And the best part is like the game has come so far since then. Like there's a lot of integrity in it, and like it's because the judging staff works so hard to crack down, and there's a lot of like peer pressure in this situation to just play clean. It's been sweet seeing like how well run and how well enforced these tournaments are, and all of the bans that have come down, all of the like negative infractions, like all of the things, like every single one of them has seemed to be fairly warranted over the past few years, and it's been great to see, the game being played and like kept to such a high fidelity these days.
Yeah, the game is being played in its pure form now, and that's really a great thing. I think there was such a push from the competitive community, and there was a lot of peer pressure amongst people that we're going to play clean, and we want everybody else to play clean too. And if you don't, we're not going to be friends with you. And the only reason people really play Magic is to hang out with all the other Magic players. So
it's insane, like the resurgence in like a lot of the older names that have come back. Like the big reason, one of the big reasons like Huey wanted to come back so bad is because, other people were making it into the Hall of Fame and getting to come back to these events, and like, man, this seems fun, and I want to hang out with my friends again. So it's such a big social draw. It's one of the things that I'm gonna miss the most. When I have to stop doing coverage is like I come to these events because like I like hanging out with like my friends doing coverage, and like a lot of the players are good friends of mine too. So like that losing that social aspect of it is going to be such a blow. Not looking forward to that.
Don't worry, it won't happen for a while.
Yeah, and then even then, like you never leave the game completely. Let's be everyone has quit once.
Then you'll just get really good and start doing well at events.
Yeah,
right?
that's going to happen. I am the king of side drafts. I'm very bad at everything else of Magic, so I make pretty words. That's why I get to keep coming to these. So that's about it.
I'm really good at PTQs.
Yeah, you are.
It's just that when you drop that Q, not quite as good.
Hey, that's better than me, man. I'm very good at FNM matches or FNM drafts. Oh, looks like we've got an upcoming Grand Prix that we're going to have video coverage for, Grand Prix Prague. And I believe that is the hometown of one Martin Yuza, world traveler.
I believe you're right.
It's going to be a modern tournament coming up in the second week of January on the 11th and 12th. Feel free to check us out. The exact same channel you're watching us on right now, twitch.tv/magic. And you can check out all the text coverage live on dailymtg.com.
Yeah, Modern's a pretty cool format.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
I really enjoy it. I've recently been playing I'm playing a Tribal Flame Zoo deck recently.
Nice.
With
what year is it?
Geist of Saint Traft and Lingering Souls.
That's like Raph Levy's deck from. Oh no, he was the Gaia's version of the deck. But
yeah. I have one Gaia's. It's called something different. It's called Might of Alara now though.
Oh yeah. Yep. Ah man, Modern is great because it's just restrictive enough that like things change, but just open enough that you can play one of like 15 million different decks. It's got all the best parts of Standard and Legacy, which was the intention when the format was created. So.
Hey, actually, there was a lot played last turn, huh? Like Christion on the last end step used Last Breath and Hero's Downfall.
Yeah, good point.
And if that island wasn't there, maybe he would not have played the Hero's Downfall or the Last Breath, right? Because
there is certainly a lot that could be changed. So it looks like we get the head judge, Jason LeMahieu, out there taking care of things. Lems is Lems in L4, right? Yeah, he's in L5. He's a 5, yeah. So he's like one of the 3. It's like him and 4. Yeah. Okay. I'm one off on all of my numbers, so yeah. So if Lems is going to make a ruling on something, it is going to be the right ruling. So they are going to actually go with the rewind after the appeal. So now we go to the end step. Last breath happens. Island is no longer in play. Calcano draws the island that he was going to draw, plays it, and then casts. So basically the exact same thing happened, but there isn't an island on the table. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 10-minute break. Yeah.
I mean, it's good, though. They resolved it without having to...
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Like, things could have changed. Like we did mention, like, if it hadn't been for the fact he showed him Dispel in the last game, like, that is, like, legitimately could have altered the play this time. But,
definitely.
Turns out the answer is no, and here we are. Back to the action.
And see, it actually ends up making a big difference because he would have been able to play his 6th land this turn, and then he would have had, Gainsay back up on a 4-drop.
Big game. Good thing a sharp-eyed reporter was paying attention to that.
Yeah, I'm the best.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, whatever.
Now instead he's on 5 mana with
It's just another day in the life, you know?
yeah,
All right, so Jace Memory Adept. That's pretty good.
yeah, that's a pretty solid target for
Aetherling to
Aetherling.
attack.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, you know, 5 mana fog, right? All right, goes ahead and cycles up for a card, hits an Azorius Charm off of Calcano's deck. Aetherling is going to do the dirty business and get in there and make sure that Jace goes away. So, Planeswalker down. It's okay, though, because we know that there's at least another one hanging out in Terry's deck, and there is the Cloudfin Raptor. So, consider all of our hypothetical situations shattered immensely. So, we tried.
Yeah.
We tried.
Every hypothetical that could have been considered.
Hypothesized?
I mean, we had 10 minutes to hypothesize, so
No, we could have come up with more.
we probably could have came up with more.
Yeah, that's our fault. We dropped the ball. We're sorry, ladies and gentlemen, for just devastating your viewing. All right, so that is going to, man, this is going to be a fun bit of evolution here, assuming this Tidebinder, or so this Master of Waves comes down. 3 Sea Ponies means 2 evolutions, if I'm not mistaken. So
2 evolutions. You don't get to put multiple triggers on and then resolve all of them because the evolve triggers won't resolve if the Cloudfin Raptor already has the 2 power.
Yeah.
So
Sea Ponies. All right. So now there's a lot of pointing, gesturing. That happens. So he comes into play, puts the trigger on the stack, and then is going to Hero's Demise. So there's only actually going to be 1, right? Because the
correct.
All right, the ability will not. Now there's going to be a discussion about state-based effects.
Yeah, no, I mean, Christian's right. He's doing this correctly.
Yep, exactly.
Master comes in, trigger on the stack, Hero's Downfall.
Those come into play, but they don't come into play. They die immediately due to state-based effects.
They
not
attempt
giving
to,
them
but the Sea Ponies have no toughness.
They're weak
And
Sea Ponies.
He gets 1 trigger.
One trigger, yeah, for the Master, but he doesn't get them for the.
He gets 1.
He does get 2?
But he did it in response.
Doesn't matter. Rashad Miller knows more about the rules than I do, and I'm going to defer to his expertise and the fact that there are 2 counters. Do you want to appeal? Do we want to bring up? We're getting lessons here on how the rules of Magic the Gathering work. So that's one good thing about having Rashad here at the producer's desk is he knows all of the rules. What level judge were you, Rashad? You were level 3?
You're right.
That's pretty impressive. So anything that we get slightly wrong, Rashad will make fun of us for mercilessly until we recant and agree with him. So,
and Rashad's right. If you stack it the way that he has instructed us to, you can still get 2 counters.
All right. So looks like another powerful 6-drop hits the table on top of on Calcano's side. Looks like if things continue as they are right now, and I can't see a reason why they wouldn't, Calcano is going to find himself the recipient of a match win, sending him to day 2 after having dropped his first 2 should have been played rounds to
he won
the airlines.
He's won 3 matches so far today. He's going for a 4th.
Not a bad start for a guy who wasn't sure last night whether or not he was going to be playing in this Grand Prix, and for a good portion of today wasn't playing in it. So
yep.
And
by the time he showed up, we'd already been here for 7 hours.
Let's not talk about that. All right, Cloudfin Raptor is going to evolve thanks to the Frostburn Weird, going up to 3 power, enough to reduce Elspeth to 2. That'll make the Cloudfin Raptor lethal for the Planeswalker on the following turn, should it get to stick around. And another Jace Memory Adept is going to come down, presumably, yep, drawing into another card, and milling looks like a negate off of the top of Calcano's deck. All right, and that looks like a Mutavault and a Gainsay hiding out in Stoute's hand. So let's see what Calcano has.
Looks like there's a Detention Sphere in hand for him.
Quite strong.
Yeah, very strong. I mean, he can use that to get rid of that Raptor.
Yep.
If he needs to, and then he can use his Aetherling to kill the Jace, and then he can send his Elspeth upstairs, and things will be looking pretty good for Christion Calcano at that point.
Yeah.
He may also just want to hang out with the Detention Sphere in his hand in case the Thassa comes down, because that's really the only card that I could imagine putting him in any sort of danger at this point is a Thassa. So.
But so you're perfectly fine just hiding behind the. Yeah, so
he's going to go ahead.
Yeah, just make sure that he keeps his Elspeth safe.
But I can't say I disagree with that.
Yeah. It's one of those decisions that you'll face in Magic where there's probably a right decision, and there's definitely a right decision, but what it is could be kind of close because I could definitely
it's certainly
see
a close call.
Like losing your Elspeth there with an Aetherling in play and just making sure that you're going to win that race, right?
The other thing is that your opponent is tapped out, and he does have a bunch of cards in his hand, and they're probably counterspells. So why not use the opportunity to resolve a Detention Sphere when you know that your opponent's deciding in Gainsay?
Yeah, that's a fair point. All right, now Aetherling gets to take a break from doing his second ability of just killing Planeswalkers to just win the game.
Yes.
Chunking a massive hit out of Terry's life total.
So 8. That is a third of Terry's life total.
All right, Master of Waves is going to provide, no defense against the Aetherling, but could provide him some offense. Although he's going to have to fight his way through, which pales in comparison to what Elspeth's been able to produce.
Mm-hmm.
Sea Ponies.
Some Sea Ponies, but
not quite as good as Elspeth soldier tokens right now.
Not enough Sea Ponies.
Yeah. He's going to need to refill those stables again if he's going to stand a chance of overwhelming Calcano's defense right now.
Yeah, now it looks like Calcano's got this one, but anything can happen. Cyclonic Rift would be pretty good from Terry at this point.
Well, time has been called in the main event, but we're about 5 minutes over the normal start time for the round. Players started a little bit late, plus I'm sure that they're going to get the extension, like a pretty reasonable extension for that appeal. I don't think it's going to matter because there's basically 2 more turns until Aetherling has done his job, which is well within the reason for the number of extra turns you get. But all right,
Calcano
takes no chances
and blocks the Frostburn Rear with 9 soldier tokens.
Reasonable.
Yeah, it's enough.
Terry takes out as many as he can, and this fight is going south for him. He's at 20, but he's only going to be at alive for maybe 1 more turn if he's lucky.
Yeah, and taking 11 here, going to drop him down to 9.
Yep. All right.
Elspeth continuing to go upstairs, just dominating this game. Aetherling also dominating this game.
Yeah. I mean, he does just win games.
These 6-mana cards, they're pretty good.
That is an island and not a Cyclonic Rift, which would have only delayed the inevitable. And he reveals his hand. It looks like Christion Calcano is going to take it, winning 2-1 over Terry Stoute, progressing to 7.